Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Inhumans. Another great episode. I really appreciate this episode because it comes down to, what do we do about Maximus? Because you still have, Bolt being like, we need to kill him. And even then you have Karnak doing that too, because, they're even more motivated to do it now because of, Gorgon's death. It hits them that much harder. But you still have Medusa trying to be the more logical one in a sense. Not logical, but not the one that's she's pissed at, Maximus for all he's ever done to, but it's still he needs to be punished, not killed, because it's you're not that type of person. You're not supposed to be that type of person. But obviously things kind of take a flip when it's Black Bolt's been lying this entire time because we didn't find out Triton's been alive this so it's hard to say how much of this stuff has Black Bolt figured out way in advance, because it's Triton hiding out and what did because it was something that he had already set up way in advance. So did he know Maximus' betrayal was coming, or was it a situation on just the off chance something happened, we rendezvous here, but it's you didn't tell anyone that was going on? It's why? Because he kept playing everything close to the vest, to the point Medusa rightfully pissed off. It's I'm the queen and you would tell me nothing. I'm your wife. We're partners in this. You hid this. He hid that little facility that's below the palace. It's what else have you been hiding from me? It's because each one of them kind of learned something from their new experiences. In her case, it's it made her take a step back and realize as a queen, she feels she probably hasn't been fully taking advantage of her duties. She hasn't really spoken. She's I'm not just your interpret, and I'm not just there to interpret what you say. I'm the queen. So what I say goes too. So from now on, we're a team. Either we act as one or we don't act at all. It's putting her foot down. So it's just kind of interesting, like I said, to see that that's what she learned, because she got an outside perspective of what it's in your kingdom, and now she sees Black Bolt doing this, and it's he's not listening to what she has to say about this whole Maximus situation, plus he's been lying to her about everything. But it is a situation of I guess as a king, you always feel you have to handle everything on your own. I guess it was something he didn't want her to be worried about. It's just as a king, it was his duty, but at the same time, he is undermining her as a queen, because it's we are a team in this. When it's all said and done, who's the person that rides or die by your side? Who's the one that's always there defending you in other people's minds? People think you're such a bad person. It's she's there defending you the entire time, and you cut her out of everything. Hopefully that definitely will fix things going forward. And I appreciate it too, because it's showing that Medusa, because it's almost a situation of like I said, she really kind of got set in her ways of just being queen, not really realizing how little her voice carried, that all she did prior to this in her mind is just translate for Bolt. It's everything was Bolt's wishes. Yeah, that she probably had a tendency to probably lean more to what he believed than kind of voicing her own opinion. So that was kind of an interesting thing. But another interesting thing about this too is Karnak himself, who wants to bring Gorgon back using the same method that Maximus wants to make him an Inhuman. So it's kind of interesting in that regard, because it's because even Medusa's what happened to Karnak, who would never do something unless he's absolutely sure? But he's his time has taught him, especially his time with Jin, that there are if you're so, and it's something we saw in past between him and Gorgon, if you're constantly trying to only wait for everything to be 100% certain, it's all over. So in this case, it's I'm holding on to hope, but hope isn't going to last long enough for me to be 100% sure about this, because they're saying doing this double Terrigenesis thing is bad because it'll eventually drive you mad. Interestingly enough, Maximus didn't go through it this episode, but I think ultimately he will in some shape or form, because I thought that was how it was going to end with him. I thought Black Bolt and them had messed with his Terrigenesis and we're going to let him go through it. Like I said, I'll kind of break everything down even more. But it's I thought immediately that's what was going to happen. Because I don't know anything about Maximus. But if you Google Maximus, the Inhumans cast just their comic book adaptations, and you look at what Maximus looks like, he looks a little psychotic. Legitimately, he looks psychotic compared to the Maximus we see here, who's a little borderline that, but more so calm, cool, and collected in some regards, not in every regard. But it's just so interesting, comparing that to him in the show. So I'm that's where immediately my brain's okay, so him going through that, maybe Terrigenesis, the second time at Terrigenesis doesn't necessarily work the way he wants it to, because apparently you're not supposed to do it. It's actually a law, because going through Terrigenesis the second time will have bad effects of like maybe it'll drive the person insane or go, lead to them dying. But ultimately, I think the situation will be a little bit different with Maximus. It still holds that like possibilities, but it's a little different because Gorgon already went through Terrigenesis, and now you're stocking Terrigenesis on top of Terrigenesis. So, which is really quickly, I'll bring it up. It's so interesting that Declan didn't know anything about Terrigenesis. I guess in my brain, I thought that was like public knowledge at this point in time, but I guess the only people who would really know about it are Inhumans or S.H.I.E.L.D. Probably like top people in the government are the ones who know about it, but like Declan's like a scientist, so I guess he really wouldn't know, because it's not like he's a government scientist, because everything he's done was funded by Maximus. So once again, probably never going to get an answer just how that all worked out. But going back to what I was saying before, so I guess it works a little differently, the Gorgon situation, in comparison to Maximus, who is human, because to him going through Terrigenesis again, it's almost like going through it for the first time. So there's still the risk of death and stuff like that, and like I said, madness, compared to how he looks in his comic book adaptation, and maybe the comic book version of him, maybe that's eventually where he'll go. But like I said, we'll just kind of wait and see on that front. But there's also an interesting conversation between Declan and Maximus about this whole Terrigenesis situation, and that is like understanding like why it's so important, because Terrigenesis is like the backbone of their society when it comes to humans, because it not only connects you as a community and as a people, it also connects you to your history, your heritage. Like, so much is ingrained in their lives. Like, it is the connections between them and their past. And for Maximus to be turned human, it's almost like Terrigenesis spit in his face. It cut all ties to every connection he would have with people and everyone. It's almost like it took his birthright away. I mean, in a certain regard, because of the whole king thing, but also just in a sense of it took him away from his people. It brought a disconnect between him. It's kind of led to him harboring the feelings against everyone that he does, especially his brother, because his brother gets to be the king and the most powerful Inhuman, to the point he's like, oh, I can't wait to become an Inhuman myself. I was actually kind of interested. It was kind of fascinating to learn how he wanted to approach that situation of like, oh yeah, I'm going to decide which abilities I want. I was like, all right, that's kind of interesting. Like, rather than it just being kind of a luck of the draw, because everyone, like I said, Terrigenesis, like, I don't know, they don't really talk about it too much. Like, it hasn't really come up since like season 2. I think they talked about it a little bit in season 3 as well. But the whole, like, it's something I've brought up too in the past, that Terrigenesis is kind of like a nature thing. So nature needs balance. So where there is one ability, there is another ability that exists to counterbalance it. There is an opposite to it. So that's why I was like, I always feel like Maximus was supposed to be the opposite of Black Bolt's like ability, his voice's ability. So I assumed like his ability would manifest as that, but like maybe because he's going through Terrigenesis a second time, like because Terrigenesis messed up, that potential in his blood is gone. So like whatever ability he could have had is no longer there. I mean, it might be a combination of like why he kind of looks a little crazy in the comic books is maybe he gains the abilities of multiple Inhumans. Maybe he ultimately decides, hey, rather than just getting one ability, I'm gonna get them all. It's actually kind of a little sad too, because he was deciding, he was like, yeah, it's kind of sad because a long time ago, like I had family and friends, all the people who loved and cared about me and who I loved in return were all there with me when I went to Terrigenesis first, when me and my brother did. But now it's like he's here doing it alone, and it's kind of a little sad because it represents the fact is that he is all alone. Really quickly too, something that never really clicked in my head, and they've kind of elaborated on it, but it's just like, in my head, I'd never realized that everything Maximus has ultimately been doing has been for the purpose of becoming an Inhuman himself. Because it still didn't click in my head, like, he's had this relationship with Declan this entire time. Because in my mind, this whole, like, trying to become Inhuman again thing was only a thing after, he found out, oh, I could use Black Bolt to help me do it. That's where I thought this whole thing started. But it's like from the very beginning, his whole coup was ultimately to get them out of the way, get the genetic council out of the way so he can eventually try it. Well, he was hoping to get them on his side, but when he found out he couldn't trust them, remove them from the equation, not have them worry about answering to anyone. But now he can go to the whole going through Terrigenesis a second time, it's against the law and everything, which is kind of interesting considering the fact is that Black Bolt was going to let him do that during that whole parlay situation. So I'm curious about that. Like, were they going to go through with it? I think they were. Because initially they're going to use the parlay as a trap, because the moment they get close to him, Maximus was going to kill him. Black Bolt was going to kill him. So, but like I said, it's just kind of interesting to me that from the very beginning, that's what it's kind of all been about. He still wants to paint it as like, yes, I mean, he admits it. He's like, oh yeah, like Orion was like, that's what this was really all about. Because to her, she's like, I always looked up and actually admired you and respected you because even despite you being a human, you became king of the Inhumans. The fact of the matter is, it's because it's the situation of like Maximus doing what he did kind of showed him like, hey, like I can do this, so can you. Like that he rose past impossibilities, which he took as an insult because like, oh, all you've ever done is look at me as some human, which he kind of alludes to the fact is that maybe there's something between him and Aron, the reason why she serves him so heavily. I mean, much like anyone else, they want things to kind of change from the way they've been. But for Maximus, he's like, oh, basically, like, we could go to Earth, we could go beyond this. I could become the most powerful Inhuman that's ever existed. That our people can go beyond, like, it's a combination of like, oh yeah, our people's future is going to be great, but also my future is going to be amazing because I'm going to be the most powerful Inhuman. I'm going to be king. I'm going to be like super amazing. It's kind of like basically all I can. It's one of those situations like, yay, our people, but more so than anything, I'm going to be awesome. It's kind of all you can really pull away from that. So it kind of makes Aron question everything because she's been following a guy who's literally been doing everything for himself. It's you got like everyone else is kind of a byproduct because even to the point he was like, oh man, Gorgon, like even though we were on different sides, my cousin, I'm sad that, you know, I don't want no more bloodshed. It's like, you piece of lying filth. You've been trying to kill your family the entire time. You didn't let your people know the only reason why you let Black Bolt live isn't because I had a sympathy. It's because you needed him alive so that you could get what's inside of him to make yourself. But then again, I guess with Declan's research, and the fact is that Declan kind of maybe he was able to kind of perfect it a little bit more. I mean, maybe that'll ultimately be the case of like Maximus could potentially get Black Bolt's abilities. I don't know. I mean, even to the point where it's like during the parlay, he's like smug and everything, and they're like, okay, we'll let you become one of us. The fact of the matter is, you hand over the kingdomship. We'll hand over rule again, and you can get Declan back. And he's like, okay. And you see a look on Oron's face, like kind of once again showing like, oh, all he cares about is himself. He's not worried about the other people. But then he pulls back, but it's like, you're not supposed to do that. You gave your agreement. He's like, I don't care. The fact of the matter is, you just said become one of you. I've always been one of you, but you've like always, you looked down upon me, you know, like I said, like, did I even finish my thought earlier? I don't think I did. The point I was making was like the fact is he tried to capitalize on Gorgon's death. Like, oh, I'm so sad that my cousin's dead. I think I did, but I'm adding that in there because I get a little jumbled when because I run my mouth too much with these. So I forget what I said and what I didn't say and what I want to say. It gets a little confusing. I do apologize about that. But for him, it's just like, this is his chance to prove himself, you know, and that's what this all has been. And it's something that Medusa kind of elaborates on that I thought was kind of interesting. She's like, the first time we met, I went in there to kind of like, when we met in your quiet room, I was going to like gloat because it's like, oh, you killed your parents. After what your parents did to mine, I wanted to gloat. I wanted to see you suffer because of like, oh, what you did to your parents. It's like, you know, just dessert. But then she looked at Black Bolt, who looked at her, and she saw the same person. Like she saw herself in him, that they were kind of kindred spirits. And the fact is of what they'd lost. And I guess they kind of, you know, she saw what kind of person he really was, and he saw who she really was. And that's what bonded them. And when she looked at Maximus and Black Bolt, she saw the same thing, that they are two brothers who are both in pain, just going about it different ways. So, which doesn't justify what Maximus has done. She's not trying to say that, but it's just like, if you do this, like, what would that mean going forward? The fact, like, it's still that situation of no matter what he's done, that's still your brother. Could you live with killing your brother? I mean, how would other people react to the fact? I mean, because the fact of the matter is, if he kills Maximus with so many people on his side, then it's like, that's just going to paint Black Bolt in a bad light anyway. So, also, side note, major props to Triton for being a badass, like going on like almost Assassin's Creed level stuff of just like taking people out. And then I like how he knocked, like fighting against Maximus, which Maximus isn't really much of a fighter because of the way of him just kind of conniving and stuff like that. Like, you know, we've already kind of established he's not much of a good fighter just because he had to find other ways around it because he was human. And so I like the way Triton like did that backflip kick and knocked him out. God, so much going on at the same time. Okay, there's that. You have Crystal Medusa talking about the fact of the matter is like Crystal kind of wants to go back and be with Dave. Like, you know, she kind of saw the beauty in Earth that not everyone is bad, and it's like it makes Medusa realize that too because she got a new friend Luis. So it's like humans aren't as bad as they thought they were, and now it puts things in perspective of like, she kind of wants to go back. It's like ultimately what it comes down to is choice, and that's what something she would like. You know, they don't have powers and everything, and they just live their everyday life. So the question I think going forward is will be determined by whether or not people want to go through Terrigenesis. People should be given that choice of whether they want/need the burden of having powers of being different or whatever. So ultimately, like, I'm curious to see what they do with that whole angle of things, because it does seem like everything's going forward of being like, what do we do when it comes to humans? Like, we learned that not all humans are bad. Granted, not all of them are good, sure, but not all of them are bad. They're actually, you know, a good many that are good. So, and what about the other Inhumans that exist on Earth? What about them? You know, so a lot of that's definitely something we're going to be dealing with going forward. Yeah, Karnak feeling the need, he has to get, you know, Gorgon back. Also, side note, I love that little camera thing they do, like when he was fighting against Oron and the others, like kind of cartwheeling, but the camera kind of tilts with him. I thought that was kind of neat. Try and revive Gorgon with her powers, like mixing her DNA with Terrigenesis. Also, side note, I think that's something else I want to bring up. It's so interesting. Why does Terrigenesis work? It doesn't seem like it necessarily works the same way as it did with I actually don't remember. Because I think they showed you earlier in the season what it looked like. Maybe their Terrigenesis is very different from the one on Earth. Because you don't see him turning to stone. Like, once again, maybe it's because Gorgon was already Terrigenocide. Well, it takes on the form of that mist. They don't, like, turn into, like, stone and bust free from it like a butterfly from a cocoon. So, like I said, their Terrigenesis works a little differently. Maybe it's because it's in this, like, that container that makes that process work differently. Because I think they showed it earlier, like, in a season, when the girl kind of got the butterfly wings. I think, like, they definitely didn't turn to stone. So it's a situation of, like, I'm curious why Terrigenesis works differently like that. Is it something in Earth's atmosphere that makes it work differently, or is it just because it's a different strain of Terrigenesis? Like, the Terrigenesis on Earth, like, is weaker than the ones in Adeline on the moon, or is it just an aspect of, like I said, those containers that they're in when they go through Terrigenesis? Well, because it's actually something recently, because I forgot, like, it's more, well, it was always kind of like a mist before. Because I think the thing that kind of throws me off is because the fact of the matter is Terrigenesis isn't in the form of a mist anymore on Earth. It was in the form of fish oil. So the moment people consumed it, it just took over them. But before that, it was always like crack something open, like a Terrigenesis crystal open, and then the mist consumes you, kind of like what it does in this. But I don't know, maybe, I don't know. It just is an interesting how different the process is. But I think this whole situation's got Oron thinking a lot more of not just this whole situation, but also where she stands in the regards of her power. Because she's like, oh, maybe it's kind of against nature for, you know, because it does seem like she does have a fear of death. Also needles, too, apparently, which is kind of interesting. Even Karnak's like, really, like, one of the top guards is actually afraid of needles. You learn something new every day, so. We do see at the end that Gorgon is back, and he's in there with Declan, which immediately I was thinking, he's going to wake up and kill Declan, isn't he? But we don't know whether or not there are side effects from it. It could be that Gorgon's back temporarily as himself, but then eventually loses his faculties. I was actually kind of surprised that they didn't run into those guys that Gorgon had met. Like I said, there's still a possibility of, like, everyone reuniting with everyone they met on Earth nearing the end, because next week is the season finale. Because Maximus, like, saying that, you know, Black Bolt can't kill him, because if he kills him, like, he'll get rid of the protective shield around Adeline, and Adeline will basically be sucked into space, like, by, like, space debris. So Black Bolt wants to kill him. Medusa's telling him not to kill him, but now he can't kill him because it would put everyone in danger. So it's like, would you be willing to kill everyone just for the purposes of getting revenge against your brother? Highly doubt it, but, you know, it's still, you know, something that's in the back of Black Bolt's mind. It's actually kind of interesting. Like, it just kind of, I guess that kind of shows you the level of where Black Bolt is too. Like, the fact that it matters the entire season, you've seen his ability get used like twice. Once in flashbacks, but also like in present day, like by accident. You know, just kind of shows you how controlled he is about his ability. It's just, I don't know, it's just kind of fascinating when you actually really think about it like that. So, like I said, next week's episode is the season finale, so I'm interested to see where this whole thing goes. I hope it is getting renewed for a second season. I haven't looked into it. I don't want to, because my whole thing, like, if I don't know, then maybe on some level it will be okay. And, because I know a lot of people went into the show not liking it. I personally really like it. And I'm curious to, not only see it go forward, but also see how it ties into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Because there's actually, like, because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is, like, in its own little bubble. Like, it's something I've talked about before, like the whole MCU, because the TV shows, they reference the movies and movies don't reference the TV show, even though Coulson, like, was kind of a big reason why the Avengers worked the way it did, because his death brought them together, but in actuality, he's still alive. It kind of plays the whole thing, but nevertheless, so it'd be kind of interesting to see Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. have a connection to something else, that being Inhumans, because even amongst the other shows, it's not like the other shows reference Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., nor does Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, to be fair, it's kind of a secret organization that's not really much of a secret anymore because it's kind of out in the open now, like over the past couple seasons. But nevertheless, it's just, like I said, that's what my mind is. So I'm very interested to see what goes down, like how this all concludes in the season finale. What can we expect to go down, With Gorgon's return, Maximus potentially becoming an Inhuman, possibly. Like, what's going to happen with this whole regards of him, like, oh, if I die, pretty much you're dooming all of Adelan. So, like, how does this whole thing play out for the royal family going forward? So, but really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.